Do you believe in ghosts? This is the question at the heart of 2008's psychological documentary Lake Mungo, a film which Jordan Peele described as one of the scariest films he had encountered. The cult following of Lake Mungo has built over the years, and today I'm finally going to dive into it. Before I do, please check out our upcoming project The Horror Exchange, but for now, let's talk about why Lake Mungo is nightmare fuel. Another film I recently covered on the channel was the Poughkeepsie Tapes, a film which creates a fictional world and story but merges it with an authentic storytelling style. Lake Mungo has a very similar approach, acting like a documentary that contextualizes and delivers its story from start to finish. Despite being fictional, what I found scary about Poughkeepsie is how applicable its story is to the real world. This is a strength I also find in Mungo. It may not be a true tale, but there have been countless stories just like this one in real life, and it really does have the power to make you question, where does the idea of ghosts come from? Surely the concept of ghosts must have been derived from something. What was it derived from? Well, in Lake Mungo, it's kept quite vague and mysterious, other than some hints later on that this film's paranormal activity is brought about ritualistically. The story here takes place in Australia and surrounds Alice Palmer, a teenager who in 2005, while spending time with her family in the Victorian town of Ararat, drowns in a dam. It's a tragedy, one that her family cannot bring themselves to believe. Their beloved Alice dead during very normal circumstances. It's scary how precious life is, and how easily it can be removed. Drowning is a horrendous way to die, so right from the off, the context isn't pleasant to endure. I think that this leads into another of Lake Mungo's strengths, that being the display of grief. The actors in the film are all really naturalistic. The way they speak and act, just those nuances in their performance, shows off a multitude of reactions to death. We get to see a variety of handling. The father, Russell's reaction was for the news of Alice's death to not sink in, second-guessing his identification of Alice's body in the lake, which is a bloody ghastly sight, and he even leaves the light on the porch for Alice to come back home to, should she still be out there. Russell was in a denial state here, commonly recognised as the first stage of grief, but this delves into somewhat more supernatural territory with an event that Russell experiences. It involves him seeing a figure appearing like Alice in the house, who goes rigid when Russell observes her. She then screams at him to get out. What I enjoyed about this particular element is that it's not shown or recreated on screen for the audience. The only stimuli you get is Russell describing what he saw. Your brain is able to paint the picture in your mind, like ghost stories are capable of doing, and the concept of that gave me chills. Then there's the mother, June, who experiences nightmares about Alice, such as the image of her dripping wet body standing at the foot of her bed. Again, it's June recounting this which provides the mental images for you to digest. It shows that you can leave an impression on the viewer simply through dialogue, no visuals required in this eerie instance. However, we do also receive some frightening visuals courtesy of Matthew, the son of the Palmer family. Matthew is a keen photographer and videographer who has a deep unsettling feeling deriving from the family home in the wake of Alice's death. His body begins to get covered inexplicably in bruises, and there are some photographs taken which appear to have Alice in them. Generally feeling something isn't quite right, Matthew harnesses his technology to film the home at night, trying to capture whatever it is that may be causing this, but also whatever it is that is giving him a deep sense of uneasiness. The technology used in the film is of its time, with VHS cameras and mobile phones amongst the evidence gathering tools, and due to the lack of clarity, we only ever get given pixelated or obscured images of what appears to be Alice. She's there, but not quite, like a shadow breaking through from another realm. I believe that the less less clear the footage, the scarier the result, because of the uncanny valley effect. You can look at these shapes shrouded within the pixels and determine that they are humanoid, but due to the acknowledgement that Alice is dead, it's not attraction that is felt towards these images, but revulsion. The images in the photos and videos here are really rather creepy, especially if you're watching the film in a dark room alone at night. That's the perfect setting for this one. But despite the haunting aspects of the footage here, in relation to the idea of ghosts, some dark truths are unfolded in the story, with some footage that haunts for other reasons. Firstly, in a genuinely shocking revelation, all of the images of Alice we have seen up until this point were created by Matthew. He is responsible for adding the image of Alice to the footage. Lake Mungo as a construct does a pretty good job in making you feel the impact Alice's death had on its cast of characters, and I find Matthew's the most interesting reaction. He acknowledges the grief in his family and the denial. They don't want to firmly conclude that Alice is dead. It's a fight they never want to lose. So by Matthew fabricating a narrative that Alice either may still be alive or may be a ghost, it makes Russell and June exhume the body found at the lake for a DNA test to ensure that it is Alice. Matthew has made his mind up. He knows that Alice is dead, and the longer he spends in an environment where there is no closure, the wounds just keep on seeping. What Matthew did by bastardizing the footage may be seen as immoral or badly placed, but equally it was him trying to guide his parents towards acceptance, the fifth and final stage of grief. Yet, despite the footage that called the Palmers to action containing a false Alice, there was something very real tucked away in there, something which opens up a whole other dimension to the scars inflicted. One night, another figure can be seen in Alice's bedroom. This isn't a teenage girl figure though, it's an adult man. It's the figure of Alice's neighbour, Brett, who attempts to break into Alice's safe. What lies within the safe is a videotape which rocks the world of the Palmers. Alice, despite being only 16 years old when she died, was involved in filmed sexual acts with Brett and his wife. It's a secret which has been caught on camera and locked away. It goes to show that you may never truly know what a loved one gets up to, including your own child, and also that you cannot tell the true motives of a person. Brett is said to be a friendly and warm person, yet he's arranged and participated in devious acts with a minor. Of all the footage captured in this film's spectrum, this one is the most physically damaging, because within this film, it's real. There's no kind of supernatural element. What the Palmers see is the reality of their daughter's world, having no clue that it was ever a thing. Just when they'd found their closure on Alice, a whole new angle is carved in the sand, one which grates off their scabs and climbs into their bloodstreams once again. However, in another U-turn in the narrative, we get a reintroduction of supernatural elements. There was a fabrication of the supernatural by Matthew, and a discovery of a harsh truth with Brett, both of which had their motives and consequences on the Palmers. But things start to get questionable again, when there are sites on Matthew's videos that he didn't create. These are things he can't explain and had no control over. So why is Alice still in the footage? Combining this with a peek at Alice's notes, all arrows point towards Lake Mungo. Mungo is a tourist spot in New South Wales, and it is a place Alice visited on a school trip before she died. While there, further footage concluded that Alice could be seen burying something beside a tree, and the family want to find out what. Travelling there and digging up the area, the family discovers that Alice has buried her most precious things as a kind of ritual, including her mobile phone. A video found on the phone is the cause of the film's scariest moment to me, one which made me shudder. In the darkness of the surrounding area, a figure can be seen quickly approaching Alice. It's the same figure as the body found in the dam. Alice's body. Alice has been haunted by her own ghost. This was foreshadowed earlier in the film, with explanations of Alice communicating with a psychic named Ray, saying that she was having visions of her own drowning. These premonitions came true, and it was Alice who came for herself at Lake Mungo. Was it a warning? Whatever it was, Christ, is it a mesmerising image. Without question, this film's standout scare. But it's not just the apparition, it's the idea of what it is. Who it is. The thought that ghosts are capable of haunting themselves, coming back from the future, transcending time. This adds another layer to ghosts. Generally, they're seen as returning from the past, the shadows of what once was. But when the chronology is flipped, I think that's a far more troubling idea. It's left unclear exactly why Alice buried her items at the lake, why she had her visions of her death, or exactly what caused her to drown. And yet, as the final photograph and the credits reveal, Alice has been there all along, in the nooks and crannies of not only the family home, but of their perceptions. And as we see at the very end, Alice's figure stands beside Lake Mungo, forever reminded of whatever it was that happened to her there. Lake Mungo is an incredibly simple film, relying on a super low budget and going by in a mostly unscripted way. It taps into the corners of reality, aiming to expose the what-ifs of our existence. But at the same time, it tackles grief in a rather tender-to-the-touch fashion, exploring several directions of reactivity. Ultimately, the nightmare fuel bow that ties all of this together is its core twist of Alice's death being directly linked to Alice's own ghost. There may be things that go bump in the night, but from where on the timeline do the bumps begin? It's a curious cult film that has wound its way onto our Nightmare Fuel Hall of Fame. But do you agree with Lake Mungo's placement? Let us know down below, and until next time, I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and I'll be waiting beside Lake Mungo, digging up another collection of Nightmare Fuel.